In this episode, we will talk about the interesting technical details behind the game and the RME system that constitutes the backbone of all interactions. So let's see how the many terrible things that happen to us during the game work. Remorse is a relatively large game with different types of gameplay mechanics, enemies, and interfaces, so it needed a robust system to adapt to several situations and ways to let the player interact with the environment. Most of it was handled with a huge entity the developers call the Remorse Master Entity, or RME, which has pretty much most of the functionality you would want out of any game object. These entities handle interaction with the player for doors, puzzles, and levers, among many other things, allowing the developers to very quickly set what game objects do when you interact with them. This was used when a gate had to be opened, a key or a tool had to be used, but they also worked in the background for more complicated, scripted scenes. Built up layer by layer, it was always adapted to whatever the current needs were, be it as simple as a button or something bigger, like an industrial mechanism. These layers make adding new interactable objects or functions to the game much easier and help the team a lot with putting together levels and events in a clean and compact way. When it comes to artificial intelligence, while most enemies tend to have relatively simplistic behaviors like chasing the player and attacking, the female monster with the keyboard in particular was a tricky task for the team. They wanted to make the enemy's AI as chaotic as possible, with a unique movement that is hard to predict and fight against. After some testing, a glitchy-looking teleport seemed the most creepy way to go for this freak. Technically speaking, it could easily jump to locations where it could be trapped and never be able to reach the player, so a certain trick had to be devised to make sure it always spawned in the proper location and direction. The enemy, before moving anywhere, samples a few hundred locations around it and gives them a score based on distance from a wall, distance from the player, and other values before it chooses a new location. With her loud and scary scream in the dark areas, this movement, and the ability to jump behind the player and attack from there, she can provide some tough moments for the player during the game. The most interesting and challenging task for the developers was the creation of the final boss, because they had to move from body part to body part, coordinating a lot of game mechanics. While it is true that the body parts have a shared health bar, they must function independently of each other in such a way that they do not overload the player and that there is always time to reload the weapon or use up a first aid kit. Attacks are timed in such a way that the player can constantly break dice and use the spinner to progress. With this, we can achieve different effects on the boss, which can help to kill the monster or otherwise make him even stronger if we are unlucky. By the end of it, the team managed to create a unique, fun, and slightly random fight against a fearsome opponent that requires skill, endurance, and a little bit of luck to beat.